Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Resources and Transformation Overview and Scrutiny Panel. I would like to extend a warm welcome to officers, members of the public and the press. I am Councillor Alan O'Sullivan, Chairman of the panel. For the benefit of those watching the meeting online, please would members introduce themselves during the meeting, if not already introduced by name. Please note that this meeting is being broadcast live on the Council's website and on YouTube. It will remain available for a minimum of 12 months. Please use your microphone and switch it off when you have finished speaking. Please switch any mobile devices to silent. If the fire alarm rings, please leave the room and use the nearest fire exit. Do not use the lift. Please go to the fire assembly point in the car park. Also to remind those in the chamber that water is available in the chamber from either here or the water machine out in the corridor. Also, if you need a comfort break, please take one. Right, moving on. Apologies.
Thank you, Chairman. We've had apologies from Councillor Jack England.
Item 1 on the agenda is the minutes. Members agree to approve that?
Agreed.
Thank you. Anybody has any declaration of interest with regards to this agenda? No, thank you. Yes?
I wasn't sure if I had to declare interest in the strategic asset management plan as a member of Lymington Pennington Town Council.
Shouldn't. No public participation. And we've moved item 5. So it's together, so all the data is together working through. So with that in mind, I'll move on to Sam.
Good morning, thank you, Chair. I was wondering, firstly, actually, if I may take item 5 first, which is the corporate plan dashboard, Chair, which is on page 35, before returning back to the annual report. That'd be okay, thank you. So, first of all, the corporate plan key performance dashboard is for quarter 4, 2025-2026. The report presents the key performance indicators covering January to March 2026. Additionally, it includes some annually reported measures for which data is available. The report, being year-end, also outlines proposed targets for relevant KPIs for this reporting year 2026-27. And as usual, measure IDs 35 through to 48 are for resources and transformation review. As such, 12 measures are marked for consideration this morning. And I'll just do a couple of quick highlights. Vacancies filled first time is green rated with 44 appointments made in the period. The average number of sick days is increased from last quarter and is now red rated. Again, we are carrying some long-term sickness and HR work alongside managers to support timely returns to work. This measure is also now including sickness for staff that are no longer employed, so the definition concurs with HR committee, but this has again led to a further increase in the value. Financial monitoring measures have now been confirmed and are contained within the report, and all are within the set tolerances. Council tax and rate collection both perform consistently well against the target profiles and are green rated. The panel is also asked to consider the proposed targets for measure IDs 35 to 48 where included. The detailed rationale underpinning each proposal is not fully presented within the summary. However, it would be informed by historical trends supported by national data where available and developed in alignment with local priorities and aspirations. There are increases in targets proposed for water filling stations. Staff turnover will now be reported quarterly, and we have a revised target for staff absence to reflect the change in definition to align with HR committee. ICT benefits and programme delivery targets have been reviewed as previously requested at panel, in fact, and both have now been increased. So happy to take questions on the dashboard and target refresh first, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. I just had one question, which was on number 48, which is the percentage of unscheduled downtime. It was mentioned in the report there about, yes, it's within target, but the direction of travel is still up. And I was wondering, is that a response to perhaps being more digitally minded as an organisation, and how do we address that going forward? Because obviously a lot of our systems now, with the digital transformation strategy, are moving into much more digital spaces.
So I think there's a very narrow bandwidth on this target. So we did reduce it down from 5 to 3. So we've got a very narrow band, and I think this is really down to a specific set of instances that have happened. We have demonstrated very strong digital resilience, and so we continue to remain protected. And I think it just reflects that small number of incidents that may have affected the target. Sorry, the outturn.
Councillor Halvan.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I have a question on KPI 45, which this is benefits from ICT projects. This was raised at the last meeting. And you say here, the target refresh, you say the document describes for each KPI the rationale agreed with the service for the new target. I don't see any rationale for the new KPI 45, which has now been increased from 70% to 90%. And I still don't know how this is being measured. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So, a couple of things will happen here. First of all, I think panels have reflected in previous meetings that they feel the target wasn't suitably challenging, and we've given results for this measure that have far exceeded the target over the last year. So, as such, panel have requested that we review the target and review the measure. What the issue around this really is more of a qualitative one, where the benefits and the measurement of the benefits derived from a project often happen after a project closes. And we really need to provide a bit more detail around each of those benefits as they become realised. It is quite a binary measure, so we either hit the target and therefore deliver the benefit, or we don't. So accordingly, we are taking those bits of feedback into account. We have increased the target quite significantly, more in line with the outturns that we've been presenting. But the service have also agreed to do an annual report for benefits realisation that will give us a little bit more detail and a bit more depth and context as to the difference that's made to the services. And I hope that is helpful.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've got a blower here and I didn't pick up most of that. I apologise. But can you just explain simply as to how you measure these benefits? You know, who decides whether we've achieved 70% or 90%?
Beg your pardon. So it is quite a binary measure at the moment. So as we develop the business cases for projects, we will have within that a list of benefits that should be derived from that project delivery. When the project closes, the capacity and capability to deliver on those benefits is then assessed. So if the project delivers effectively, the benefits will be delivered. And that's how the metric currently works. What's really missing from that is the post-project evaluation and the tangible difference that's making to the business. So the qualitative report that will now accompany this at year end will provide that.
Okay, thank you.
Alex Wade, Hive Central. My questions are on 38 through to 40. On 38, does the percentage of staff turnover account for any fixed term positions, such as maybe maternity cover, or are they just full-time positions that have come in? And are we learning anything from any leaving interviews yet at this stage about how we can bring that number down, not discounting the wider factors outside, which we can all understand regarding that figure? On number 39, it's just a simple point I think I've raised before. Are the majority of these people with long-term sick doing more physical roles, and is there opportunity to train them and use them in other areas in the service, in other responsibilities? And on number 40, it is really good to see 7 council apprenticeships successfully completed. Have they now gone on to roles within the council or not? Because it'd be interesting to see their next steps and if we were maintaining those skill sets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. As far as the derivation of these metrics go, my understanding is that what we've required from HR committee on the measure for 38 is that it does include all staff. Long-term sick, again, it includes all staff and everyone. We haven't got a breakdown in the metric around where those resources sit within the organisation. And council apprenticeships, once they're completed, they are closed. And I'd like to think that a lot of those stay on in the council. These are questions I think I'd be happy to take away and direct to HR committee for them to provide a more holistic response to this.
I'll put them in writing for you, Keith, if that helps.
Thanks so much.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you. On the, I've got 2. So the number of council apprenticeships, what is the justification for 18 specifically? Could it be revised upwards or downwards? And the other one is on percentage of staff turnover. What is the baseline rate for other councils in terms of staff turnover? Are we aligning ourselves with the standard methodology or are we different?
So the apprenticeships figure, the rationale behind that is pipeline, what we have in the pipeline and what we anticipate. We've done better than we expected over the last year, and we've got pipeline coming in where we expect those numbers to hit. So that explains the rationale around that. I beg your pardon, sorry, the second part of your question.
Was the staff turnover thing. Firstly, I agree with it being quarterly, which makes sense. But in terms of the baseline figure, that 11%, are we in line with other councils? Is that like a standard methodology, or what's the situation there?
Thank you. So the rationale around this, that it's based on industry standards, and we've had some discussion in other panels as well around trying to find a comparable metric for an organisation such as ourselves that would have generally had similar experiences to what we're going through now with LGR looming. And actually, it's very difficult, but these are based on industry standards, and we're trying to set a target that is slightly better than the industry standard for councils.
Councillor Woods.
Phil Woods, Fordingbridge. I'm not sure whether this is the appropriate time to ask this question, but looking at KPI 7, investments in and rollout of public space CCTV system, the RAG rating is a green. Yet in Fordingbridge, we're having severe usability problems and practicalities with how the system is actually working. So does that get reflected in the rating or not?
So specific instances like that wouldn't be reflected necessarily in the metric itself. But again, if you'd like to furnish me with the details in an email, I'd be happy to direct that to the service.
Lovely, thank you.
No other questions. Zach, do you want to carry on?
So moving on now to the annual performance report. So the annual performance report is presented and outlines the key achievements and performance highlights aligned with the corporate plan priority areas covering the period from April 2025 to March 26. It provides a retrospective review of key performance activities over the last financial year. Complementing the quarterly dashboard updates, the annual performance reports offers a year-end summary enriched with detailed insights and contextual narratives from across our service areas, providing a more cohesive and comprehensive account of performance. A more qualitative analysis and the stories behind the headlines reported in the dashboard. And again, happy to take questions. Thank you.
No questions, I think. Covered a lot of it in the previous item. Okay, good. I don't think there's recommendations on item 5, which is to consider a review of the page, which we've done. Okay, 4 and 5. Move on to 6. which is complaints. Amanda.
Thank you. Amanda Wilson, Information Governance and Complaints Manager. The main purpose of the report is to provide members of the panel with the annual Complaints Performance and Service Improvement Report for the year 2025-26. As members will be aware, the Council is under the jurisdiction of two Ombudsmen in relation to its complaints handling: the Housing Ombudsman for complaints from tenants in the Council's capacity as its landlord, and the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman for all other complaints. Both Ombudsmen have complaint handling codes which the Council must meet, which came into effect in 2024. The panel's covering report sets out the requirements for self-assessments, reporting, compliance and scrutiny in relation to the Council's complaints handling, which complies with the complaint handling codes. This includes the requirement to produce the annual report, which is included at Appendix 1, carry out self-assessments against the complaint handling codes, and also for Cabinet as the governing body to approve a formal response to the annual report, which is included at Appendix 3. The report also includes improvements that have been made to the Council's complaints procedure this year as a result of the Housing Ombudsman carrying out a review of the procedure to further enhance compliance with the codes. The annual report will be published on the Council's website and must also be submitted to the Housing Ombudsman for their review of the tenant aspect. In the annual report, members' attention is particularly drawn to Section 5, which covers an overview of all complaints received by the Council, their findings, themes, stages and timescales, as well as Section 6, which covers the same overview for tenant complaints. Section 9 covers learning. The Council recognises the importance of learning from complaints as an intelligence source and using complaints to drive service improvement. At Section 9, there are examples of case studies where learning has been implemented and there are ongoing service improvements as a result. Section 10 covers Ombudsman decisions, which details the decisions received during the past financial year. There have been 3 complaints that have been upheld across both Ombudsmen. The report also includes examples of complaints that have not been accepted, as well as compliments and positive feedback that have been received across services in the Council. These have been included to recognise some of the really positive experiences that customers and tenants have received during the past financial year. The report has also been considered by the Housing and Communities panel and will go on to be considered and approved by Cabinet next week. And the recommendation is for the panel to note the report. That brings me to the end of my introduction, Chairman, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. It's one of the longest reports I've had. I think it's about 130 pages, I think. On page 5, all complaints, it says we had 324, but of which 154 referred to waste and transport. And of those 150, or 121 were for missed bins. So if you took those out of the way and compared it to last year was 44 and this year is 33. So if you can, I know you can't generally, but if you take the waste out of it at the moment, we're actually doing well. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, my one is actually, it's a bit of a weird one, but how many complaints can you tell are being made with AI? Because how has that impacted your workload in the complaints department? Because I'd imagine just someone being able to put into ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever and being able to do a formal letter or something would actually increase the likelihood of complaints, because people who perhaps would feel not confident in writing a formal letter of complaint would then feel that they could just put it into an AI chatbot and it generates something. It doesn't necessarily have to be correct, but we're going to get them, I think. And I don't know if you've noticed an uptick already.
It's not something we've actively started recording in terms of number, but from a general overview, it is quite clear that AI is being utilised by complainants to make complaints. They tend to be quite clear signs when AI has been involved in drafting the complaints that have been made. We need to consider carefully making sure that we still deal with complaints that have been received with AI in the same way that a complainant could have a third party or an advocate act on their behalf to assist them if they don't feel able to articulate a complaint themselves. Them having AI available to them to assist them is something we need to take into consideration. What we do find with complaints that seem to be AI generated is they're often not as clear. They bring in miscellaneous information that isn't really relevant to the complaint. And so it's something that we need to look at in terms of how we address that and how we manage that. And also, I think, is a really good example of why it's important to pick up the phone and speak to complainants to really understand what is the root of their complaint, when sometimes AI generated complaints can be really large but not focused on the issue at hand. But it is something we're keeping under review.
Councillor.
I think it's in the report that that in our neck of the woods, my neck of the woods, it doesn't account for phase 3 waste collection. So obviously that will fall into the next year's report. Can I ask that, however it's handed over to the new authority in whatever capacity, that because the equivalent of report for the first time without any waste collection change of policy for all our residents will actually technically fall in the new council. It'll be June, July 2028, because next year's report will have our part of the world. And I think it's worth highlighting that is clearly a huge differentiation in the numbers here. And there will be a high number, I know, from casework and just by a massive change to the service for the most highly populated of the phases, that we can look for that in that first year of whoever the new councils are and account for hopefully going back to status quo, because the numbers might be higher year on year, but it's worth noting that these are still relatively sensible numbers compared to other authorities, and that the learning from the waste process, once it's completed, we should see a drop here. And I think it's worth highlighting, however we hand over in the complaints process, that this is somewhat of a standout moving forward. I would also like, if possible, in the next year, just to see a bit of clarity, if it's possible, for where the complaints are coming from sections of the district, because that'll be interesting to see. Thank you.
Thank you. I can take those forward.
Anybody else? No. It's good to see a very comprehensive report, so that it does see that we're taking this very seriously and taking, as a council, from the public to take the information back and do something about it and go forward with it. So thank you very much for bringing that report to us. A recommendation, apparently.
Just a note.
Is it just a note? Yes, just to note it. Thank you. Item 7, financial monitoring report. Paul, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out the provision item for 25-26 across the General Fund, Housing Revenue Account and Capital Programme. Overall, it represents a positive financial position for the Council, with a General Fund surplus of £591,000 and an HRA surplus of £880,000. Furthermore, we delivered over £44 million worth of capital investment. So within the General Fund, after considering rephasing of £1.5 million to support specific service activities, as laid out under paragraph 14, the £591,000 surplus is largely driven by additional waste services grants, higher interest earnings, and net lower financing costs. These have been partly offset by a variation in business rate income and also a number of service variations. Previously, we would have reported those in the 3 FMR updates to date, and the latest Q4 variations are included at paragraph 15. Whilst it is positive, the variances overall, it is worth noting that many of them are non-recurring. So therefore, this doesn't fully remove our medium-term pressures and the work going on to resolve those in the coming years. As per the recommendations, the surplus is proposed to create a new reserve, staff retention reserve of £500,000. And the remaining £91,000 will be added to the council's corporate priorities reserve. A review has also been undertaken, which is therefore enabling us to consolidate an additional £186,000 to that priority reserve too. The HRA position, the positive variation there is the proposal is to add that to the repayment of debt budget, so bring us more in line with our traditional £4.1 million position. And as mentioned before, the investment in capital was over £44 million, and the sort of underspend against budget is purely to do with rephasing and not a fundamental issue in terms of delivery. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Alvin.
Thank you for that. Just a very quick one. We talk about allocating this surplus 500,000 to create a new staff retention reserve. Can I ask how that's going to be spent? How's that going to be used?
So members may recall last October there was a market supplements policy approved by the council, and this will therefore provide the resources available to support the delivery of that policy as required. The report includes a recommendation to delegate authority to the Chief Exec and the leader to use the funds in accordance with that policy as required over the coming 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Yeah, this might actually come up under the LGR side of things, but the 91,000 for years going to the corporate reserves, corporate priority reserves. Are we actually allowed to spend any of that come the autumn? As in, are we actually able to do stuff with it? I just worry that we're going to be building up a surplus that we're then not able to spend.
In our sovereign right, we're still entitled to make decisions, and the structural change orders have not yet been laid in detail, which may add another layer of governance to that process. But as it stands, we are at liberty to make local decisions still, and those reserves are available for that flexible use as we go forward.
Councillor Way.
Yes, you note that in addition, business rates income was £833,000 less than the original budget. Do you have any insight into why? Because that's quite substantial.
It is, yes. Unfortunately, the nature of the beast and the volatility with levies and the calculations that go alongside it means it is a challenging task to undertake. We are looking at getting some further support in year to make sure we land with the LGR process to improve our understanding and make sure we have a better line of sight as possible going forward.
No other questions? No, thank you very much, Paul, for that detailed update. Move on to item 8, which is commercial and residential property strategies by Phil. Thank you. Can you put your mic on, please?
This is the annual report on the performance of both the commercial and residential investments that the council holds. Just by way of summary, I'll just talk a bit about the commercial investments, the aims and objectives, and so on, and the financial performance. Then I'll go on to talk about the residential arm, which is operated by a private company in the ownership of NFDC. The commercial property investment panel was set up in 2017 with the object of making commercial property acquisitions in the district that will provide economic development and make a return on the investment. The portfolio fund was £30 million, and that was achieved without any external lending. We managed to get to a point where we'd spent about £29 million, and then in 2023, with the interest rates changing, further acquisitions were put on hold and are still currently on hold. That just gives you information on the distribution of the properties. Understandably, they're on the edges of the district, and sort of split between what is the waterside area and Lymington and New Milton and Ringwood. So for the commercial investments, that's on the left. The pie chart shows a balance sheet of the current value of those properties as reported for the purposes of financial reporting. So the portfolio, the investment portfolio is valued currently at £37.8 million. And there it just shows a distribution of which assets are valued individually. There's assets that were acquired under the strategy from 2017, but there's also some assets on the right there that were already held by the council prior to that asset strategy. On the right-hand side, you can see the distribution of income. Currently, the net operating income, which is less obviously of our costs, is almost £1.7 million in the last year that was reported. There's a dashboard there indicating the values of the properties currently from when the acquisition costs and then the current values. Just by way of note, you'll see second from the bottom, Platinum Jubilee Business Park was originally, it cost the council over £10 million to develop from a greenfield site. The valuation is currently 7.8, but that is due to the investment is now valued in a different way on income from rents as opposed to the actual costs. But there's generally increase in capital values of all the other assets. Just to pick out some of those assets, this one is Platinum Jubilee Business Park in Ringwood, which we bought the land with planning permission and developed the business park there. It's been very successful. There's 13 different companies operating there. Many of them are local companies. The business park has now been completed for 3 years, and 88% of the floor space is let, with an annual income of over £500,000. There's one office unit remaining, which has been difficult to let in the current market for office space, but we are in agreement with an operator to potentially take that over, which will then take us up to 100%. One other property that we bought as investment, but although we have been using part of it operationally up till now, is an industrial site in New Milton called Queensway. The lease ran out and the previous tenant left it in a dilapidated state. We're currently pursuing dilapidations claims from that tenant. But in the meantime, to bring the property back into use, we've been doing some refurbishment works, and you can see from the photographs on the top, the before and after, there is quite a significant difference in the property, which will make it more viable to let to the commercial market. The use of the yard for bin storage is now being diminished. Moving on to the residential arm of the investments by the name of Apple Tree Property Holdings. There's three separate companies, all owned by NFDC. So it's an arm's length organisation where we have acquired 16 residential properties which are let in the private sector, and the aims of the Apple Tree is to provide good accommodation and be a landlord of choice. So the structure and governance of Apple Tree, just to remind you, is it's a limited company. There's a board of directors, 4 directors, 2 officers and 2 members, and the chairman being Councillor Alan Sutherland. There's board meetings held regularly and then an AGM every year, which is reported on the performance of the residential investments. So there's just an overview there of where we are. So the 16 properties, a cost of 5.1 million. The monthly rent roll is 18,800, and that is 225,000 just over a year, which leads to a yield of approximately 4%. So there you'll see from 2023, the zeros there reflect the fact that there's been no further acquisitions since then. So the debt to the council is from the company just over £3.7 million, and the overall return on that is 4.1% yield. The void periods, we've attempted to obviously reduce the void periods as much as we can. So in last year it was 46 days, slightly more than the year before, but there was obviously more properties to relet. So on the relet of the property, there's usually decorative works and things that need doing. So just an overview of there, 5 new lettings last year, average void times 46 days. There was one tenant that was actually didn't pay the rent or stopped paying the rent. So we were managed to get possession of that property back. And as it's on a limb in Lymington, the board decided to sell that property, and that sale is currently going through. A tenant satisfaction survey was held last year, and the response from those was high satisfaction. So I think we're really achieving the aim of being a landlord of choice in that area. Just on the financial, the rental income increased from 254 to 266 in the financial year last year. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Bowes.
Thank you. I'm impressed with some of the rate of returns on the 2017 investment strategy side of things. I'm slightly more concerned about the existing property that we had and the net operating income on that. Lymington Town Hall, for instance, has decreased quite significantly with the net operating income, as has Hive Marina. I'm just wondering if you could explain a bit more about those particular situations. I know the National Park are looking at removing some of their operations from the Town Hall in Lymington, but I don't know what the situation is there. Is that because tenants who were there have left, or would you be able to explain a bit more, about Hive Marina and Lymington Town Hall?
Firstly, Lymington Town Hall, all the leases ended in November this year. We contacted all the occupiers to say, did you want an extension on that? Bearing in mind local government reorganisation. So we offered them all an extension on the leases to the end of the financial year 2030. Many of those occupiers have come back and agreed to an extension. The National Park hasn't. They're in a sort of standoff situation, not very responsive at the moment. But yeah, that was the answer to that question. Hythe Marina is a long lease to the marina company. It's a mixture of commercial and residential property on there. The council has a percentage of the income achieved from the commercial element. So with voids that they've had and difficulty in letting some of those units, that can reflect the difference.
Councillor Alvin.
Thank you. Yeah, I have two questions. One on the commercial properties. On the dashboard on page 218, taking as an example the Platinum Jubilee Business Park, you show the ARR as 4.52, which is a percentage of the balance sheet value. Why do you not show it as a percentage of the acquisition value?
Well, how the yield is in relation to, apologies, how the yield is worked out, it's in relationship to the income over the cost or the value of the property. So it's not necessarily, it's the yield that is producing, so the return on the investment.
It obviously paints a better picture than it would if it was on acquisition cost. And my other question is on the property holdings, and for example, the table on page 224 of the pack, where we stopped investing in 2023. So the next 3 years, we didn't do anything, but we had an income. We must have had an income, and yet you're not showing it on that table. Why is that?
Pardon, is this the apple tree holdings or the commercial, sorry?
I'm sorry?
Are you referring to the residential or the
residential
commercial?
ones?
The residential, thank you. Well, no, this table, I think that's the table we're referring to. That table doesn't show the actual income. That's on the other chart. But what that shows is the equity and against the debt. You know, because we borrowed money from an FDC.
So where is the income shown then? If it's not shown on this table, where is it shown?
Okay, bear with me. So on that slide there at the bottom, the rental increase is shown there, income from 254 to 266 in the last year.
Okay, I just don't think it's a very good way of presenting the information. I'm sorry. We could show the income for those 3 years, which presumably will, well, I don't know what it will show. Presumably it's going up, but we don't know, do we?
Yeah, apologies. I've just pulled up the relevant chart there, which shows the monthly rent and the annual rent. So that shows you since 2020 up to now the increase in income.
No, it doesn't. It shows it up to 2023.
Yes, apologies.
Okay, well, perhaps next time you do an update, you could bring it up to date. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wade.
Yeah, thank you very much, Phil. Unfortunately, not much has changed since this was presented last time. And I imagine with the issues around uncompetitive interest rates, there isn't much that we're going to be able to invest in before LGR anyway. Can I ask, is this something that, again, over both organisations, both Apple Tree Property Holdings and the investment, are you already looking at how you're going to split this up from an LGR perspective? Because I imagine that you have investments across both the west and the east in the new authorities, and how that is going to be managed in the new council, or is it effectively, how are these investments in these buildings going to be looked at come 2028. And my other question is with regards to the dilapidations with regards to the site in Queensway. You'll continue with the claim against the previous tenant. How is that going? And is there any likelihood of an outcome before the end of the year?
If I can just answer the second question first. So when we've got the final costings of the repair works we had to make, obviously some of them are improvements, which you can't claim for, then that will be the basis of our full claim with the former tenant. The first question is, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'll, as the lead representative on LGR for the council, with the other councils, I can assure you this conversation potentially and specifically about the commercial assets is taking place. Unlike the housing assets and other assets of the council, the commercial ones are raising a few questions in the LGR space. The big issue is that most other councils have invested outside of their areas. So the conversation about where commercial assets should go isn't a straightforward one of geography, like it is for NFDC with 40% of our commercial and housing assets. It might be 41%, or it's around about 40% for both sets of assets in the waterside area, subject to the south, the new Southampton-led authority. So that conversation is continuing. And there's also another conversation about does the commercialisation, and particularly private companies that sit within councils, are they actually part of the LGR stream? So I think that conversation is continuing within the wider Hampshire group.
Just to come back on that point, so you're suggesting, it's obviously nothing set in stone, that in theory, just because there are west-based and east-based, there could be a decision that, say, for example, the authority that takes the rural side of the New Forest, New Milton onwards, that takes on the name of the organisation and manages it, while the other side doesn't, because, as you say, the other councils invest outside of their districts. That's a consideration.
It is a consideration.
Thank you for that, Skill.
Thank you, Paul. Could you just introduce yourself so people understand why you're answering that question?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Paul Thomas, Assistant Director at Regeneration and Assets.
Thank you. Have you finished, Phil? Yes, thank you. Any other questions? No, I thought it looked like you were going to ask. No, in which case we'll just note that recommendation. Thank you, Phil. We'll now move on to you, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. So this report's been in the making for quite some time now, and been to the various panels and EMT. But essentially, the main purpose of it is to bring the Cabinet and the panel up to date on the progress against the Strategic Asset Management Plan, which was adopted around this time last year. So the slightly technical bit, it does have 5 pillars or five strands or 5 parts to it. And essentially, just run through them. So pillar 1 is the digital asset management aspect of managing the council's assets. I can report sort of good progress in terms of our LGR, tidying up all our databases. And I think we're in a better position than most in actually knowing where all our properties are. They're mapped out to their valuations, and they're all in the database in the data hub, ready for transfer to LGR. So that is a big piece of work that was undertaken by the team. Pillar 2 is asset optimization, and I think you've probably been listening to some of that from both the commercial assets and the day-to-day business of rent increases and bringing our existing portfolio up to standard. And there's an investment programme that's progresses alongside that. Pillar 3 is the partnership working side of things. So that certainly has come into the form now more with the close working with town and parish councils, which leads on to other parts of the report, for example, and also closer working within Hampshire as part of the LGR agenda across all the councils involved with that. And Pillar 5 is the place shaping type long strategic agenda. I'm just on Pillar 5. It's worth mentioning that the other item as part of this, the transfer of community assets, it's only at the feasibility stage, and I'll let Sam explain that at the moment. So when we get to that part of the report, you will note that we're only at the feasibility stage, even though a lot of the strategic work has gone beyond that. So for the next stage, we'll be consulting internally with colleagues in planning and operational services to make sure that they come to fruition. So this is the ambers on that one. I'll just make that point, and then I'll hand over to Sam, who will tell you about the other two main recommendations in the report.
Hello, Chair. I'm Sam Wills. I'm the Service Lead for Estates Valuation and Facilities. So I'll just pick up briefly on two of the key themes in the report. So firstly, with public conveniences, we've carried out a really comprehensive review across 23 of our public convenience sites, looking at condition, location, usage and their long-term sustainability. That piece of work has allowed us to prioritise investment where risk and need are highest, particularly where the facilities are no longer fit for purpose going into LGR. So our approach is a balanced one with a targeted replacement of a small number of the poorest performing sites alongside a wider programme of maintenance and essential works across the remainder of the toilet estate. So as you'll see in the report, the priority replacement sites are Calshot, Lymington New Street and Bransgore. Totton Central, we just need to clarify that's now outside of the immediate programme due to the ongoing master planning work. So that's been deprioritised, but we will be moving that into the maintenance category, so investing some money to bring it up to a better standard. For the sites that we're looking to demolish and rebuild, we're proposing modular units. So for those of you familiar with Barton Beach, that's a really good example of a modular building that's put a skin on it, so it looks like beach huts. It's really fit for the environment and it's holding up really well. So that's what we're looking to replicate at the different areas. Obviously, we wouldn't put beach huts in Bransgore car park. We can use the design to design in something that's sympathetic to the local environment. And another important point to note, which is fleshed out in the report, we're delivering this as a single coordinated programme, which is better from a cost control and delivery confidence perspective. So the public conveniences piece is really around moving to a strategic data-led approach, maintaining our provision, but also reducing long-term liabilities for the future authorities. And then I'll just move on to community asset transfers briefly as well. So as Paul has outlined, the focus this year has been around putting a really clear framework in place around our asset data. So rather than rushing into individual transfers, we decided to do it as a project in a kind of tranched approach, looking at governance, our own assessment criteria, and the required due diligence. You'll see at Appendix 3 the expressions of interest that we received. There's about 40 of them. We assess those consistently against the scorecard that we developed as part of the Asset Challenge strategy, and we've undertaken some initial technical checks. As Paul has said, that's an early sift, so many assets are constrained, and it's quite a small number that we're potentially able to progress. But we will be undertaking further engagement with the towns and parishes, liaising with our planners and other key services within the council. So I really want to stress that it's a draft. This is where we're up to now. It's not the final list for decision at this stage. And we'll be supporting the towns and parishes through the process as well. I think that's it for my summary. So Paul and I are happy to take any questions on those areas or the broader report.
Councillor Davis.
Yes, sorry. So Lymington Penton Town Council applied for, I think, a couple of sites. We had a letter back saying to further discussions It wouldn't be shortlisted. I can't see from this report what the criteria was, because there's some that are quite similar. Would you just explain a bit more about the actual criteria for the shortlisting?
Yeah, so the three primary kind of acid test questions that we used was, is there a long lease in place? So broadly, a lease that's 25 years or more from now. Does the site generate an income to the council, and is the site of strategic value? And I think the case with Lymington, there's lots of different parcels that all have individual lease titles. The majority of those are on long leases already to the town council.
They're not with the town council.
Oh, and some aren't with the town council either, sorry.
Most of the leases for the Lymington town are not actually held by the town council. They're with the lifeboat station and other leasees. So that would require us actually unpicking all those leases and transferring them, disposing of them to the town council to meet their wishes, which may be worth considering in the longer term, but with the Section 24 notice due any day soon, that would be a long-term strategic plan. And we did actually assist both planning and ourselves with Lymington Town Council in applying for lottery funding. So they now have the money to do some of these surveys and wider master planning, well, shorter master planning work that the council would need to get the large capital funding required. And then this type of discussion would then come after that in a normal regeneration piece, if that makes sense.
Councillor Alvin.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you for that report. I'm not going to say it has enlightened me a lot. I'm going to talk particularly around Fawley, because that's where I come from. In your Appendix 2, you say that we submitted 3 UPRNs. I'm not quite sure what that stands for. We submitted more than that. I'm just wondering why they're not being acknowledged. We've recently received 2 letters from you which are contradictory. One letter says, I'm going to quote, land at Calshot, for example, an open space adjacent to Churchfields has been successfully shortlisted. On the same date, we received a letter saying open space adjacent to St George's Hall, which is Calshot, and the open space adjacent to Churchfield has not been shortlisted. What are we to make of this? It strikes me, I don't know whether this is AI or what it is, but there's obviously a problem.
So UPRN is the unique asset identifier. So that's a recognised thing. So every asset that we have will have an 8 or 10-digit UPRN. Apologies for not making that clear within the report. I do have an action to respond. I have had a query back from the town clerk at Fawley. They are different land parcels, and I appreciate it perhaps wasn't drawn out particularly well in the letters to identify them, but they are under different titles.
Well, I don't understand. One letter, I take your point.
Councillor.
One letter says open space.
Councillor, can you take this up with the officers afterwards, because it's a particular unit that you're talking about?
We have tried.
As opposed to a general.
Have tried.
Thank you. Can you switch off your mic? Councillor Davis.
So just to confirm, in terms of the 3 questions you ask yourselves, can I confirm that the, I think, 10 EOIs that you've taken forward to shortlist, they've all met all 3 of those questions, and the ones that haven't? Is that correct?
Yes, broadly. There is a scorecard that we developed in the background. So if an asset was, if it didn't have a long lease, it wasn't of strategic importance to the council and it wasn't income generating, it would progress to a scorecard, and the scorecard asked a further round of questions such as what condition is the land or the building in, is there opportunity for sustainability improvements on the site, is it linked to a particular local plan where we might need to consider other improvements. So it's a two-stage progress, and I apologise if that's not fully covered in the report, but yes, broadly you are correct. Everything that's red didn't meet those three initial criteria.
Once you decide which properties you're going to pass over, who do you bring that to here, or does that go straight to cabinet? What's the process from that point onwards?
So I think our understanding of that is it's essentially if these come out as key decisions or not to go through the next stage of approvals. So there's financial and a disposal decision could always be regarded as a key decision, but the £150,000 limit. So I think all the ones shortlisted, we may be looking for a shorter route for approvals to get the show on the road, quite honestly. But we think we do have more time with community asset transfers than we do with actually getting the public toilets programme into contract, because the public toilets programme is circa £2 million worth of investment, and we probably need to we do need to get that done before the Section 24 notice, and that falls out of this council's hands. The community asset transfers, most of them are public open space and debatable around values. So therefore, I don't think they will be key decisions. But disposal, I can assure you, for many years is actually one of the most difficult things for a council to do, to dispose of its assets in terms of all the legals, conveyancing and best value requirements in Section 123 of the Best Value Act and all the rest of it. So yeah, we'll be looking for the shortest route through the governance process to get the programme in train.
Councillor Wade.
Thank you so much for your report, Sam and Paul. Firstly, on the public conveniences, I think particularly from my area of Hive, absolutely welcoming improvements for changing places and disabled friendly and family changing facilities there. It's very well utilised, but unfortunately it's targeted. It's not in a good state at the moment, but it is very well utilised and essential in the village centre. So that will be very much welcome. Thank you. With regards to the feedback from those that you have chosen to move on or not move on, am I guessing that, I appreciate this is a draft, but are the 10 that you've put in yellow ones to consider and the ones in red absolutely done and dusted? And what feedback, if any, are you going to give to the individual parish councils about decisions that are made, why they were made, and ways forward? And is there any avenue for any other assets to be brought to your attention from the respective parish councils?
Yes, thank you for the question. Well, the Strategic Asset Management Plan does talk about community asset transfers as an ongoing programme. So, so we're open to discussions and we can run it for as long as the councils exists in that sense. The reds is basically, this is stuff we just can't do now. Because as I said, most of them will relate to longer term decisions, longer term regeneration type activities. Both the planners and myself have offered to go out and help town and parish councils, as in Lymington's case, for sort of longer term strategic bids together. So in terms of the scorecards, there are some assets there that are in the red, but it would actually make quite strategic sense in the longer term to put them together as a package for the town and parish councils to, still have a say in developing their local area. It's just stuff we can't do now. So there are some clear red ones, which is where they've requested income generating car parks from the council at nil value. But apart from the standout ones, then we'll continue to assist to bring them back in, because in a way we've gone community asset transfers is seen as disposal at the first stage, and you kind of, if the council had 5-10 years to run, then you would kind of be doing that in the latter stages, having got your funding in place, having got your plans in place, and so on and so forth. So I think that's the best answer I can give at the moment. So we're still open for business on community asset transfers.
I will come back to you privately because you mentioned car parks, and obviously my parish council referenced those. So, but I'll ask you a few questions off Keith.
Thank you. Keep it brief, sorry. Just say firstly, brilliant about the public toilets. Obviously, Lymington New Street, very happy with. We have had just some vandalism as well, which is a bit of a nightmare. So yes, as soon as they can be done, that'd be great. The other one I would say, in terms of the questions and the criteria, I don't think it's intentional, and I think that's really important to note. It does slightly penalise those, say Lymington Pens is a good example. There used to be a borough council, and so a lot of it's wrapped up in the historical side of the leases and the licensing, these long history. And I think that's something that we perhaps have to look at. I think Ringwood might have similar, where you've got these councils who effectively a lot of their assets are wrapped up in historical agreements with the district council that took over a lot of their responsibilities from the borough, the old borough council. So I think that's something to look at going forward as part of this strategic asset management, because I think some areas that have a bigger history than some other parishes will have that issue, and I think that's something to just look at going forward. I think in Lymington's case, it certainly has had an impact.
Any other questions? No. So there's recommendations for all this. The first, the recommendation that the panel note the progress made in the first year of delivery of the strategic asset management plan since its adoption in July 25. The second item is review the proposed procurement approach to deliver the capital project delivery model for the replacement and refurbishment of public conveniences informed by usage data, condition, location and future delivery of broader strategic plans. And the third item is review the shortlist of potential asset transfers to town and parish councils for final legal and planning due diligence to progress the community asset transfer work stream of the strategic asset management plan.
Point of order. Can we take each one separately?
Yes, we could do. Okay, let's do the first one then. Note the progress made in the first year of delivery of the strategic asset management plan since the adoption. Okay, approved. Review the proposed procurement approach to deliver the capital project delivery module for the replacement and refurbishment of public conveniences informed by usage data, condition, location, and future delivery of broader strategic plans. Okay. And the third one was review the shortlist of potential asset transfers to town and parish councils for final legal and planning due diligence to progress the community asset transfer work stream of the strategic asset management plan. Okay, right. Thank you. Thank you very much. You didn't, okay.
Sorry, just to, yeah.
Have to do a vote.
Okay.
This is the building any comments.
Okay, can we, on item 3 of the recommendation, who those in favour of it?
But what is it? It says review the shortlist.
Yeah,
We've reviewed.
We can take comments. Does anyone have any comments they want noting?
You could just make comments.
Yeah.
You can't take a So I've been advised any comments that you want to make against item 3 will be recorded. Any comments you want to make against item 3 will be recorded.
I've made comments. Yeah, captured yours, yeah.
Okay. Right, we'll move on to item 10, which is the LGR programme update.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'm Becky Drummond, Assistant Director for Transformation. Just a really brief verbal update this morning following the all-member briefing earlier this month. And just in terms of context, we're still at a relatively early stage in terms of the area-wide LGR programme, but I am looking to bring something back to this panel in September with a bit more detail. So first thing to mention is the local government minister this week has confirmed that the timetable remains as set out, with all new councils going live in April 2028. So that's the position that we're working to in terms of delivery. I talked to members at the briefing about the structural changes order, so just a bit of an update on where we are. So MHCLG asked us, each authority, for some views and information to inform the structural changes order. A collective response has now been sent by the Chief Exec at Hampshire County Council on behalf of all of the authorities in Hampshire to the information requested, including confirmation of returning officers for shadow authority elections, subject to some political approval in individual authority cases, alignment of parish council elections and grant funding arrangements. Warding patterns, which is a significant element of the information requested, are still being finalised, and there was a slightly longer deadline for that information to go back to MHCLG. And we've had confirmation that the structural changes order will be, we're likely to receive a draft of the structural changes order in July this year. So in terms of mobilisation, the focus now is on mobilisation of the Hampshire-wide programme, and there is a mobilisation team coming together. I sit on that group across Hampshire, looking at key activities that we need to help inform some of the decisions and the work programme moving forward. So all 10 workstream leads for the enabling work streams have now been agreed, as have the 5 portfolio theme workstream leads. So each of those theme sponsors are a chief exec from one of the sovereign councils, so one of the 15 sovereign councils. And where we've got to at the moment is really around prioritising capacity and resources. So really acknowledging that this is a really significant and complex programme, and we're going to need different resources, capacity and capability to deliver that programme. That includes appointing a strategic partner, so work is currently taking place to identify what the need for that strategic partner is and then going out to procurement. We're also going through a process of appointing key officers to support the programme. Now, some of that is in terms of the programme management office for the area-wide programme, but that's also supporting roles for the theme sponsors, so theme leads, subject matter experts that can help inform the direction of that theme. The other piece of work that's happening at the moment is the arrangements for joint committees, and the terms of reference are being drafted and considered by monitoring officers at the moment. So in terms of the New Forests position and our programme, so the work that was happening in terms of what we called phase 1 around housekeeping is continuing. Paul's described the work that's happening on assets. We've mapped our digital architecture, which puts us in a really good position to start having conversations with our partners. And we're looking at our record keeping and our job descriptions just to make sure everything is up to date. So that work is still progressing. And one of our key focuses now is considering our own resources. So how we free up capacity to support the area-wide programme and how we backfill key roles. So that's a very live and important piece of work that's happening now. So, yeah, like I said, still relatively early days in terms of an update. I'll definitely be able to provide more information to the panel in September, but happy to take any questions now.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you. I'm assuming when the draft structural changes order comes to us, you'll be sending that out to all councillors to make them aware, because obviously it's something that we need to be aware of. You turn to look at Matt. Matt? Any...
Yeah, I think we'll take a look at it. If it's appropriate to share, then we will share it.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of warning arrangements, when can we expect those to be finalised? Because it was, I believe the deadline was supposed to be sent off by the end of June. It's currently the 25th. I'm a little bit nervous that we're getting close to the deadline.
Yeah, the drafts are nearly there. The chief executives leaders are currently going through that, and the deputy senior responsible officers, of which we have 4 representing all future unitaries, are currently considering their response on that. It's substantially complete. It's just going through that final process, and then we'll be in a position to share.
Thank you. If you could let us know as soon as possible, that would be helpful.
Of course.
Councillor May.
You mentioned about key officers and for the external work that as part of strategic work. Can I ask where are those going to be coming from, and are they hoping to be external, or could they come from existing councils involved? And what support is currently being given to the staff who are obviously having to double up, triple up in their workloads, not to mention the anxiety that comes with the entire process moving forward about job future and security as we have to plan for the councils being split. Just one minor quick point, can I ask that people don't use the phrase Southampton-led? Not popular in my neck of the woods. We are part of the new council. It is not Southampton-led. And we even have to remind residents the Walkside will be part of, not led by.
Of course. So in terms of the programme roles, that's mixed. So we've been asked if we can free up officers to support the actual programme itself, so the standing up of the programme. At this stage, we're supporting some of the data work. Matt Clark, our programme manager, and I are supporting some of the mobilisation work. That's what we've offered up so far. In terms of the implementation of the programme, we've got key officers as work stream leads in the same way that we did have with that initial piece of work with KPMG. So we've identified key officers at leadership team level for each of those 10 enabling work streams, and that work is just starting to happen now. We're absolutely trying to give our own staff opportunities to be involved in that programme where we can, but some of that will need to be resourced with additional capacity, either from the strategic partner or from additional roles that will be created through the programme. In terms of what we're doing to support our staff to free up some of that capacity, that's the piece of work that we're currently doing around resourcing. So looking at the appropriate officers that need to support in terms of subject matter experts, their current priorities and key projects that they're working on, the resilience within their team, so if there are opportunities for other people to step up and support if we release some of the capacity at a more senior level, and then where we might need to backfill those people. And in terms of wider support for our staff, we're continuing, we've got a staff engagement programme specifically on LGR. We're continuing to support with LGR newsletters, regular communications, regular forums coming together. And we had a really successful monthly meet with staff about a month ago where we went through some exercises and some scenarios and just took questions there. So yeah, we're trying to do as much as we can to make sure staff feel involved and supported given that uncertainty.
Any other questions? No? Councillor Leary.
Sorry, can I just add to reassure Alex, our employee side liaison panel, we've done a staff survey on LGR. They have come back that they feel very well supported. So just to reassure you, the staff do feel supported. They are very pleased with the amount that I engage with them, other officers engage with them, and Kate Ryan engages. Just wanted to make that point.
I appreciate that, and that you can't, but unfortunately you can't dictate that it's going through LGR and there'll be jobs lost and jobs insecurity. That's out of your control. I do appreciate that there is at least understanding within the cabinet on that. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Look forward to the next update. Moving on to item 11, Project Management Office update. That's Ingrid.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, panel. Ingrid Archer, PMO Director. Let me just launch this presentation so you can see it. Okay, I have put an appendices in this as well of the list of projects, as I'm really aware that this morning I'm going to be talking about different projects, different tiers of projects, and you could have been sat there wondering what they are. So just for members, there's a link at the back of the pack for you to have a look at that so you've got some reference for the information that I'll be giving. So last time I came to this panel was in March, and the approach that I took was I gave you all an update on the programmes and projects that sit under our transformation strategy. So a combination of digital projects, of course, our SAMP work, which you've just heard about, and rounded up what we've achieved in the years since the team had been here. Now, all of that work is still continuing, but since then we have created a programme management office to bring the whole portfolio of projects and programme work from across the organisation into one place so that we have one view, one set of reports, and that we're able to manage capacity and to assess need against LGR demand as it starts to come in. So today's update is slightly different in that it deals with a wider group of projects and it talks more from a programme management office perspective. But the detailed reporting that you've previously seen still sits beneath all of this. And we have Councillor Steve Davies as our panel member on PMO Assurance Board, who is cited on all that detail and can bring it to you alongside me for a briefing should it be useful for members. So I'm going to take you through what we've done to set up the PMO, real kind of meat on the bones of what that's delivering for you, the so what, and what members can start to expect in the future. So moving on to why we set it up, we didn't have one individual view. Everything was managed well, and there was certainly a lot of scrutiny, but there were pockets of different levels of governance applied to different types of projects. We wanted to make sure that anything we were delivering that's time-bound, requires more than one service to deliver, and creates a draw on our resources was being tracked centrally so that we can ensure that there is comparison, and that we're considering LGR. So we've put in place our PMO, and I think we've reported for about 6 months now, with projects reporting at the top level every month. There are really strategic, important, heavily invested projects, and then tier 2 and tier 3, which still form the backbone of the portfolio. However, they are reporting more proportionally bi-monthly or quarterly. So what this means is where previously we didn't have one clear view of our capacity or capability to meet LGR requirements, now we are able to do that. It still doesn't create any easy choices, and we are absolutely fully utilised at the moment on the work we are currently doing. But certainly having that data is important in itself. So we now have some assurance around whether or not we can meet some of that future demand. So what does this actually mean in practice, the so what of why we would do it? So as part of that, one of the important things we're doing is not only applying governance to the work that's already in flight, but we're also putting more governance and scrutiny at the front of any process to make sure we're not taking on work that doesn't absolutely align to corporate priorities, to our plan or to compliance, so that we aren't working on nice to haves. And as a result, we've already seen situations where people have come forward with requests for significant software or for new ways of doing things where we've been able to use tools that already exist in the organisation or make the ask slightly smaller and more manageable. Alongside that, we started out with 108 in-flight projects that we were trying to track across different elements of the organisation, and we've brought that down now and rationalised that into 50 key programmes of work. So created alignment for some really common pieces of work that were going on that previously were done by separate teams, and bringing that together for efficiency of delivery. So that's worked really well, and I think the teams that have come through have had a good experience, because alongside us saying no, which could be seen as slightly negative, we do look at alternatives for them. And of course, the PMO provides real support in getting what they need, but doing that in the best way for all of us. So looking at the current position of the portfolio, so our projects and programmes are divided into 3 tiers, tier 1 being the most significant risk heavy projects and the ones that most of our centralised corporate services are allocated to. Tier 2 programmes support that work, they're enabling streams, they're foundational work, it's the building blocks that we need to have in place to achieve success and benefits in the tier 1 work. And then tier 3 is primarily what we previously called BAU activity, but it is a drain on our resources. And I'm happy to report there's nothing we're working on that is an absolutely critical, vital and delivering improvement for our residents and investors to the forest. However, it doesn't leave us many easy choices when we're looking for additional resources, both to continue the good work we do around improvement, but also meet those future demands. So really the only wriggle room we have at the moment is around that tier 3. And that's the bit we're seeking to control so that people aren't taking on additional work without us having sight of it, which creates a draw on resources across operations and mean when we have extra demand, we're unable to meet that. So we've been looking at a particular window at the moment of closures where we have quite a number of smaller projects closing out. And what we're keen to do is make sure there's discipline around those closures and that the resources released as a result of that are then reallocated to the right things. So it's a bit of the work that we're doing in the background now. Tier 1 projects, as I've said, and programmes before, are continuing. So all of the transformation work is going on. And I know previously we had paused on our regulatory services project. We were having conversations with future partners with the consideration whether we could bring together support models or create efficiencies of scale through that work. The decision has been more complex than we had anticipated. So essentially now it would be a difficult job to work out 2 separate approaches with 2 sets of arrangements, and we don't have that long before our current system is out of support. So we need to move forward as an entity ourselves, and we're working at the moment on the costing plans for that, and again the resources that we would do. So that works to start imminently, and we will of course bring updates around that to this board as part of the portfolio update, but we will be moving forward with a new forest solution for that. So I've given you a summary, and this is a flavour of the reporting that I generate every month for the PMO. So we look at each individual programme or project that's reporting at the time, but I also generate an overall summary. At the moment, our progress is green, although I would say many of our programmes have moved from procurement and discovery phases into the real hard yards of delivery, which is often when things become more complex, stickier to deliver, and there are clearer dependencies across the work. So we're seeing some slowdown, although broadly speaking, the portfolio is still moving well. Budget is within control, although amber at the moment. So we have some costing plans that need to be finalised, and that's what that indicates. There's no overall challenge. It's just people being absolutely clear on the ask and making sure that plans represent the latest information and aren't from previous phases of delivery. Resources being our biggest challenge, we have no wriggle room in tier 1, with everyone in that area being fully utilised and the same group of constrained resources being reused over and over across the portfolio. A number of milestones coming up. I know members have sight of all of those, and many things are coming to Cabinet and various panels, so you'll be seeing those. And the project work that we have in the pipeline coming forward is absolutely appropriate to join the portfolio, as it all relates to significant areas of improvement that we want to deliver for customers, residents and our service areas, stabilisation activities, and also supporting our workforce as we move forward. So we're happy they're the right things for us. Then moving on to the most important thing, what does this actually mean for you? So this should mean in the future that we're bringing a whole organisational view of our delivery and demand to this group, and that members are clearly able to see where we're seeing pressure, where we're seeing constraints, and where we will start to feel impacts, and what that will overall mean for service delivery and for the people that we support. So we're hoping to deliver for stronger assurance, governance and delivery confidence, and we are of course interested in ongoing feedback around this work. It is developing and will continue throughout this year, but it of course needs to be useful and graspable for both members and our staff. So if anyone does have any feedback, please do let us know. We're happy to hear it. Similarly, if you'd like a briefing on any particular area of concerns that you have that sits within this, my team are happy to come along and provide that on a one-to-one basis. So thank you for your time this morning. Just a link there to the project list and questions.
Thank you. I'm not quite if I understand practicalities of how you do what you do.
Yeah.
You're almost like an audit, but with recommendations. And do you talk to, and have you got the expertise in the different departments to understand the projects they're coming forward with?
Yeah, so we've built a really good team of subject matter experts. So we're not sitting there as project staff expecting to be kind of, jack of all trades in this environment. We will bring people in, and we very much work on operational areas recommendations. So if they're bringing forward recommendation, we need something. Our role in that would say, we know we already exist in a part of the organisation. Could we reshape something we already use? Could we deliver it as part of something else we're delivering, so we have the whole oversight? The way it works in practical terms is we have a monthly board, so exactly as you would expect, where we really sit down and scrutinise the reports that are coming through and make sure that the information does match progress and match what we're hearing. And then in between that fortnightly, we all meet as a group alongside subject matter experts to have a more informal conversation about what people are needing, what our priorities are, what demands we could meet, and negotiating around some of that. So I like to think that we've still got the layers there, but what we're trying to do is reduce some of the overhead on decision makers like this group, so that you're able to get through more as more starts to happen. That answered that, Chair.
Councillor Wade.
Firstly, I think you should add ice baths to tier 1. All of you have been waiting for us to speak. It's baking today, so thank you for your patience for our questions. A really, really good bit of work, and thank you, Ingrid. I would ask that the link to the list of projects is really important. I appreciate it's not useful for your time or any officer's time for us to come to scrutiny and raise every project, but links to the individual projects, because we will have portfolio interest, we'll have ward interest, and there'll be certain projects we'll want more details and updates on, so we can maybe ask the relevant officers outside of meetings when it's more efficient to do so. So a little bit more detail on where each individual project is, or a spreadsheet that we can access and within reason ask the relevant officers and have that, and so we can just sort of raise the more serious issues at scrutiny. That would be important to have in the report a couple of weeks ahead with the agenda, just so that there's that additional link, so we've got that information, so we can be confident, even if there's a traffic light formation linked to the KPIs, similar to the KPI layout, but that sort of thing would be really useful, and just maybe an appropriate officer that we can within reason engage with, so we can deal with it there and not obviously make these meetings 5-6 hours.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. That's really useful for me as well, because I recognise it's a gap. So I will endeavour to do that next time and make myself available for any questions. But thank you. Appreciate that feedback.
Thank you. Any other questions? No?
Thank you.
Move on to item 12, which is the financial strategy task and finished group arrangements. Basically, it's, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to seek endorsement from panel members around the proposed arrangements for this year's financial strategy task and finish group. The role of the group is slightly different to previous years, which looked at the full spectrum of the council's finances, whereas this one is proposed to be slightly more focused on examining the savings and efficiency proposals, ensuring they are deliverable, and also identifying any risks or alternatives that could be put in place. It's a slightly earlier start than normal, and equally a slightly shorter programme, so that we can bring back feedback and recommendations to the September meeting as opposed to the November one, which will help feed into the budget setting process going forward. So that's basically in summary, so happy to take any questions.
How many members are you expecting?
The proposal is to have 7 members, cross-party membership as previous.
Those that are not on holiday in August?
And those are available, yes.
Councillor Wade.
You say, I would strongly advocate it meets on Teams for the dates given, the time given, and availability of members. I think that will be crucial to get availability. Thank you.
Sorry, yes, noted. We'll take that back, yes.
Thank you, Paul, for that. We now move on to portfolio holders updates. Leader, Councillor Cleary.
Hi, Councillor Jill Cleary, Leader of the Council. First of all, I'd really like to start by celebrating the success of our staff event at Appletree Court last week. It's a key part to delivering our people strategy and reinforcing our commitment to supporting staff. We brought together 350 colleagues over the day, creating space to connect, recognise achievements, explore a wider range of support, opportunities, networking across the council. There were 34 workshops covering topics such as digital skills, wellbeing, career development and local government reorganisation. We also recognised, which I thought was absolutely wonderful, outstanding individual and team contributions through the LEAF Awards aligned to our values of learning, empathy, ambition and fairness. We received an impressive 91 nominations. Steve Davis and I were on the selection for reading all those nominations, and it was really heartwarming to see what staff had written about each other and what they've achieved and how they've helped each other through illness, how they are supporting each other with the worry of LGR and just generally networking in the department. It was just wonderful to read what was going on. Just to tell you that events are now being planned for our depots to ensure that those staff who obviously weren't able to attend also have a chance to celebrate and be recognised. So we will have covered all the staff. I'd just like to take you back to agenda item 7. Thank you. I'm pleased to see you approve the staff retention funding. It is a way to help us keep staff that will be involved in the LGR. Thank you. The staff retention scheme is going to help retain certain members of staff or give them an incentive to stay. And this will, in the long run, be much more cost effective than continually calling in interims, outside consultants, etc. So thank you for approving that. That was wonderful. And if I can also take you back, do you remember our CPR report that said we didn't blow our own trumpet enough? I think we've taken those words on board. I think the reports that you've had today highlights mostly good, I would say, and mostly improving services. Our waste service for stage 3 has really gone well. We've really learnt the lessons from 1 and 2. So it's my chance to say, yay, everyone. We are blowing our own trumpet and I'm really proud of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we need to shout and, don't we? Yeah, get everybody.
Thank you, Chairman. You'll be pleased to know in this heat, I won't keep you much longer than about 45 minutes.
You're on your own.
Right, Chairman, obviously, one of the things that's interested me recently is our budget outturn, not only the budget outturn, but also what we would do with the developed surplus. As the leader has already explained, I think this gives us a cost-effective form of retaining our valued employees and ensuring that we go into LGR in the best state that we possibly can. LGR comes across and invades everything you think about now. It is 645 days away, if you want to count.
Oh, great. You're one of those that does a countdown to Christmas, aren't you?
No, I try to ignore Christmas completely, but this is far more important. And obviously that is reflected across everything that we look at and do and takes every decision that we make now. During today's meeting, I've felt a little bit guilty as some of our officers perhaps take a little bit of flack for the proposals that I've suggested and put forward. I'm not keen on painting a target on me, but the truth of the matter is that with that timescale and with what we have to get through, we have had to make some quite serious decisions. So the first one being the award of the, looking to go out to award the contracts for the rebuilds of the toilets. I would very much have liked to have gone along and taken Totton in with that initial proposal, but obviously, very importantly, the regeneration scheme impacts on that, and it would have deferred the decision. We don't have time to defer the decision. So we are taking decisions at the moment that perhaps reflect the fact that we need to get on. There's been a lot of talk, there's a lot of work to do. I don't want to spend my time talking about it and achieving nothing. Equally, and I got stick from my town last night, you'll be pleased to know, Ringwood, is on the decisions that we make for the asset transfer. Again, there's some very, very complex and difficult ones. There's some very, very easy decisions. We're not giving you the car park as much as you'd like them. No. Nice try. We knew you were going to ask. You knew I was going to say no. But equally, there are some very complex issues within there, and I didn't want to get to the end of the process and have actually achieved nothing. So my steer towards officers was to deliver what we can deliver quickly and efficiently. If we have more time, more capacity, we may well look further at other issues, but at least to get the job done and get some of the transfers that can be achieved with minimum difficulty out and to them. So again, I'm afraid the officer's very kindly covered, but actually, if you want to shoot at me on that one. I think that at that point, I will call it quits and take any questions if anyone has them, because I am mindful of the temperature and the time this meeting has gone. Not from you, Mr. Wade.
Councillor Davis first.
Mine was actually for the leader. So I would like to question you, Jeremy, but we'll do that later. My one was actually about the LGR. Obviously, the County Council have launched a judicial review of the government's LGR decision. Obviously, NFDC seems to be getting a lot of flack, I think unfairly, because people are assuming that NFDC just weren't up for the fight, and I think there's a communications issue there. And this is the thing. Has the leader of Hampshire County Council reached out to you about joining their review process, about the legal advice they have received, and if so, kind of what's your feelings on that? Because obviously, it's very difficult as a councillor trying to explain the district council's position, which I think is very clear, when I think we're kind of being briefed against by Hampshire County Council.
Yeah, thank you for the question. You are right. I think we are being reported in the press rather unfairly, because they seem to think that we were just looking at one item on the Silks review. Our instructions were perfectly clear. Leave no stone unturned. And that was said many, many times. He did that. We actually got 2 reviews, one from a barrister of 40 odd years with experience in this, and then a Silk, and a very good Silk, actually. And I thank him for the hard work that he did and his advice. I think I don't really want to get into a war of words against county or what county have decided to do. Before he received his official advice, the Councillor Nick Adams-King did have a phone call with me. He told me what he was going to do, but I think the advice that they are seeking is on a different plane and more of a county-based question, because it's on the finances. And he's mainly referring to the children's services, the adult services, and how it actually stacks up from a county point of view than it does district. So I'm perfectly happy with the statement that has been made by us, and I'm perfectly happy to stick with that.
Councillor Wade.
So firstly for the leader and then for Jeremy. I've had the staff event. I think I had good feedback from staff I spoke to. I think those events are very important, staff initiative, and I think they're very well received. I hear there's a table tennis table. Jeremy will have a game later. Where did you...
Please play Alan if you want a real match.
Absolutely. I'll even play right-handed. So firstly, Jill, where did the 500k come from? How did you get that figure for the staff retention? And is that something that could be reviewed if it's too little or too much, as it were, if it goes down? And I would just make a statement that as a resident, the waste collection has been predominantly very good for me and my family. But from the council with the casework, I have to say there have been issues raised, as you'd expect, and there will be complaints. So I would just be cautious. The staff have done a brilliant job, but there are still residents impacted by it for one way or another. So I have to just stick up for there. So it was just my question about the 500k.
Fine. For a long time, we had been looking at setting up this reserve. This was something that we talked about as a possibility. As you go down the line and you see the impact of LGR on staffing and such like, that possibly turns into a desire, a look for funding. We were fortuitous in our outturn that with the increase in interest earned, that we had a capacity to bring that forward. The discussion had sort of morphed into about a £500,000 budget. It is, unfortunately, as with a lot of LGR, a bit finger in the air and see how things go. I mean, if you look at our original budget for LGR, when we were looking for the whole budget, when we were looking at simply transferring all assets and the whole of New Forest District Council into a new authority, it was considerably less than we are now burdened with when we have to look at the division of assets. And I mean, you've already touched on this today, in the fact that simply because an asset is physically based on one side of the line or the other, it would be unreasonable just to do the transfer based on geography, because the asset, they all form assets of the council, and the assets must be divided equally between where our residents end up residing, you know, in whether they're in what I would like to refer to as urban New Forest or whether they're in rural New Forest. I think they're two very good names for the new authorities. I can't understand why other people aren't picking them up. So, yeah, so, I mean, it is arbitrary at this time. I'm hoping that it is a level, I mean, it's a meaningful amount of money, and that it is a level that will endeavour to deliver that stability within our staffing to ensure that we actually move forward and we can continue to deliver the best result, not the result I want, but the best result we can for the people of the district.
And on the question of the asset strategy, I appreciate you make the point about car parking, but if that is a revenue generator, but the revenue is lower than expected, according to the financial report, and it's not going to be our asset one way or another, come a few years, why is that such a closed chapter for relevant town and parish councils?
Because predominantly, and I say predominantly, the assets were generated and created. I mean, when I was young in Ringwood, we did not have a single car park that was owned by Ringwood and Fordingbridge Rural District Council. Not one. All parking was within the shops and private ownership. Over the years, we have now got quite a big we've got two car parks, one of them very big, one of them with a lorry park. That was developed, paid for and developed with New Forest District Council taxpayers' money. It now generates money for New Forest District Council residents. It would be disingenuous if I was to say, thank you very much, all that money will now go to Ringwood. And I'm really sorry about the people in Burley and Branscore. I mean, they do have teeny tiny car parks, but they don't have the capacity to manage them. You are not getting a return on that any longer because Ringwood is far more important than you are. So I think, again, it's a major asset developed with district council money, and I think that it would be right to stay in the major authorities' ownership, generating revenue for everyone in that area.
Councillor Woods.
Can I just ask a quick question of the leader?
I haven't actually answered Alex's questions yet.
He didn't manage you. He didn't pick on you.
The recent pronouncement by NFTC and HCC about LGR, how do you feel this affects the New Forest Together campaign?
Well, they are a separate entity from the council. They are still focusing on what they, want, don't split the forest, etc. As we don't want that result. No. We don't want that result. But they are the focus group that is going off to do that, and how they go off to do that will be up to them. I've got no controlling body over what they are doing. I wish them every success, and hey, if they pull it off, I don't care where it comes from. Brilliant.
But you feel the recent announcement makes it a little bit more difficult for them?
I don't know. It's finger in the air at the minute. Let's just see. I mean, it's based on if this happens, if that happens, and if this happens. Yes, probably Andy Burnham is going to be Prime Minister. Yes, he will probably have a new cabinet. Will that change their stance on LGR and devolution? I've got no idea. It wasn't in their manifesto, so I can't guarantee that they're actually going to change it. They've had lots of councils, districts and county contact them saying they're not happy with this. Do they listen? It's finger in the air time. It really is finger in the air. And perhaps within about a month, 6 weeks' time, when he's actually in, the elections have taken place and he's got his cabinet, we might be looking at a different scenario. Let's hope he actually listens to I think they're up to 27,000 signatures now, and to all the district and county councils that can't see this whole thing producing any savings, because it's going to cost so much to implement, and there's so much dissatisfaction with not being listened to. And whilst I've got on air, it's not a result we wanted. You all know we wanted option 1. We've been saddled with option 1A. If we could reverse it, if anybody can reverse it, then please give it a try.
You were about to say something, Jeremy.
I was just merely going to mention that I might be fairly supportive of New Forest Together for some strange reason, but as the leader has said, they are a pressure group. I say all power to the pressure that they deliver, and it will help, hopefully, to deliver the right result for the forest. But we must let them, as we all do with our children as they grow up, let them paddle their own canoe and achieve what they can achieve. You can be proud of results they get, or even the effort that they put in, but they must do what they see as right. And the autonomy is important, because there are restrictions on what we can do and where we go, because we are a public authority. They don't have that restriction on them, and I admire them. And as I say, I support them wholeheartedly, and I wish them the very best in their endeavours, but they must be considered that out on their own to do what they feel best for their community.
Thank you both for your comments. Very helpful.
Thank you very much, both of you. Now we move on to the work programme, item 14. I've got one addition, which is reflecting on the discussion earlier in the meeting. I'd like to request that a more detailed overview comes forward to the next meeting to confirm the data behind the ICT benefits realisation KPI. So Becky, Lee, please ensure that's included. Do any other members have anything that they want to? No. Okay, thank you very much. I've got no urgent items. Thank you very much for this lovely warm evening. We can all go back into our shorts now.